So you can understand me when I'm speaking, but when you listen to other native English speakers, you just freeze. You think, oh my God, what are they talking about? All of the words and the vocabulary are just like going over your head. When you listen to them, your mind just glazes over what they are saying, and you just feel confused and you feel a little bit frustrated because you're like, why can I not understand them? And then it's really interesting because normally if you turn on the subtitles, you will notice, actually, I know these words, but yeah, when they were just said together in that specific pattern, in that rhythm, with that intonation, you are not able to understand. So in this video today, I'm going to give you 3 different reasons of why this happens and what can we actually do to help us to reach a level where we can finally just relax in the language, we can listen actively, understand what the other person is saying, and then be able to respond in a way that is clear, that is coherent, and in a way that is organized. So first of all, vocabulary. We have to talk about vocabulary, okay? So if you are between a level of A1 to, let's say, low B2 in English, you are still on this huge vocabulary journey, right? Which means that you are still accumulating lots of vocabulary, lots of different expressions, lots of different verbs, lots of different adjectives, and lots of different nouns that you are still unfamiliar with. So there will be many times when you don't understand someone because of vocabulary. And the way to identify that is when you are listening to a video and you use subtitles, if you still can't understand what they are talking about, then that is a vocabulary issue, right? So before you even look at rhythm and context and speed and expressions and how this really complex, this grammatically complex and this vocabulary complex language is spoken, you need to first, of course, have a very high level of vocabulary, and that comes from, of course, lots of language development and practice. So the first thing that you really need to focus on is your vocabulary level. So if your vocabulary level is very high, you are at the high B2 level going into C1, then that means that you are really gonna start transitioning to focus on listening to videos without subtitles. You're gonna do transitional listening, you're gonna spend a lot of time doing active listening, but in that kind of B1, B2 level, you're going to actually really be focusing on developing vocabulary. But of course, you still want to be sharpening your listening skills during these phases. So I would really recommend to do lots of mimicking, spend lots of time doing active listening, but in shorter bursts. So I would say maybe 1 to 2 minutes of active listening, then take a break, 1 to 2 minutes, rather than when you're at the more advanced level, you're going to be doing 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of active listening. So your frequency and the volume that you're learning is going to go up as your level increases, but you really need to make sure that you are retaining the words that you are learning. I'm sure a lot of you have vocabulary lists that are just pages and pages and pages, like you could make a book out of the vocabulary that you have written down. But the point is that when we're learning a language and we're processing the language, the language kind of comes into our mind and then it leaves, and as we repeat that process maybe 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, it stays and it sticks because your mind starts to learn, okay, this is important, let's add it to the connections in your brain so that you can start to actively be able to use this. And this is where you'll hear the term passive vocabulary and active vocabulary. So the more active your vocabulary is, which is typically at a higher level, it means that you are able to actually reproduce the words, you can remember the words, and it's sticking in your mind. If you have a lot of vocabulary that is passive, it's because maybe you've only read the words and you've never actually used them, you've not produced them with your own mouth. So you're not going to be confident when it comes to speaking. But maybe when it comes to listening, you are, because you've heard it quite a few times. So you can recognize these words, but you are just not able to use them. So these are 2 different issues. One is a listening issue, one is a speaking issue. Whereas today we're focusing more on the listening aspect of the language, and we're trying to understand, why can you understand me, but maybe you can't understand others when they are speaking. So the first aspect is vocabulary. So next we're going to move on to the second point. And the second point is about the varied accents and speaking styles, okay? So let's just take the UK, for example, okay? So I'm from the southeast of England, but in the UK, including Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, there are so many different accents. I think there are over 30 regional accents, and then within different towns and between different cities they have different accents. It's varied, it really is, and some of the differences are subtle and nuanced, and they're not that difficult to understand. And then you know the further north you go up, for example in England, the language, the accent gets much stronger, and they are using lots of different words because of how language evolves, and the words that they have chosen to adopt in that part of the country will be different in compared to other parts of the country. So in England, just off the top of my head, we have the Cockney accent in London, you have the Yorkshire accent up north, you have the Brummie accent in Birmingham, you have the Manchester accent in Manchester, you have the Scouser accent in Liverpool. If you go to the southwest, you also have accents like in Bath, and it goes to Wales. They of course have an accent because in Wales they have their own language, they speak Welsh, but of course they can speak English too. So it's very interesting, and it's really varied, and I think the way that I speak, I enunciate. I've had a lot of global experience. I've traveled a lot, lived in lots of different countries, so this has impacted the way that I speak and the way that I talk. But this is how I talk with my friends, with my family, with everyone. I'm not slowing down, I'm just speaking how I naturally speak. So this is another element that you will notice about people when they are speaking. So you have the accents, you have different speed, you have different rhythm, but you also have different personality types, right? So I'm quite calm and controlled and composed, whereas other people might be like very excited and very like they want to express their point in a really emotional way, which typically means it's sped up. When we speak in an emotional way, it's quicker, it's faster, it's more rapid, right? So you need to really gain exposure. So how can you gain exposure to this? This is the really key point about developing your listening skill, is about how can you gain exposure in the language, especially if you're not actually living in a country that speaks the target language that you're learning. So you can recreate your own environment. Of course, you've got to be using YouTube or Bilibili or whatever platform that you like, where you can gain access to podcasts and to videos, just like you're listening to me now. This is great exposure because you're listening to the words I'm saying, your mind is processing them, and you are developing your ability to listen. If you can't understand what I'm saying, then it means you need to take a step back, and you really need to use harder content as more of your active listening practice. But you kind of want to find a level that I would suggest you want to find 3 different levels of exposure for your listening. So one is the highest level. So this is podcasts, this is movies, this is native level content at native level speed. Second, you want to find kind of this mid-range where maybe the speaker is a bit more calm and composed and controlled, like how I speak. And then this person, you can like kind of use that as a base to help use it as a platform to give you that boost, that jump to that native level as time goes on. So I think it's something that you need to think about, you need to use. And then the third one is that slowed down listening practice, which typically you do A1, A2, maybe B1, but I think when you're around B2 level, you definitely shouldn't be relying on slowed down speech. No way. You should be really pushing yourself to listen to my kind of level of speech, which is a bit more controlled and composed just based on my personality and my global exposure, and then of course to native level speed, which even though I'm native, but when I say native level, I mean to a level which people have personalities that are very different. They're speaking with more different regional accents, and the dialogue is just so quick because it's emotional. They're discussing topics that they feel strongly about. So I think it's really important that you think about these 3 different layers to your listening practice. And there are some different methods I would also recommend when you are listening. So one, of course, is just listening to the clip, trying to understand it without subtitles. Next, of course, listening to the clip, trying to understand it with subtitles. You will notice a big difference in your listening comprehension percentage. Next is doing shadowing. This helps because you are listening and processing the language and then replicating it, also with and without subtitles. So these are kind of and then active listening, which I'm doing a lot of at the moment with my target language, which is Spanish. So that's practicing a lot of active listening, where you listen for you listen to a short segment of the clip, and then you rewind and go back to make sure that you comprehend and understand everything. I like to ask myself questions when I'm listening, like, what did he say? What did she say? What are they talking about? What's the key thing? What was the word in the middle of the sentence that he just used? So I really use this practice to try and kind of decipher and figure out like every word that's being said in the video. And I find this is really useful and really helpful. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video today, guys, you can head to VALLHO, that's VALLHO. So VALLHO is an English coaching platform. I'm one of the coaches on the platform that really help to boost your English skills, really help you to boost your comprehension and your understanding of how this language is actually used in a real way, so that you can connect with it, so that you can feel comfortable in it. And if your goal is to speak with international clients and to be able to conduct yourself professionally and to get promotions and work hard towards incorporating this language in your life, then that's a great goal. And then also as well, if immigrating or moving to another country is your target, then of course that's also a great goal that we're going to help you to achieve with VALLHO, and focusing on different aspects of your communication, identifying gaps, and creating a learning plan that's going to help you to actually develop your skills step by step, and finally overcome these issues with brain freezing, not being able to speak up, not being able to connect to the language, and not being able to understand people. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video today, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.